Soulmates, Incident 7, The Alien in Apartment 3B. In the bustling heart of Seoul, where neon lights dance with each flicker and the air is thick with the scent of street food, a new chapter began for two young souls. Meet Chu-Wei, an aspiring graphic designer in her late 20s, who had just struck gold at a small startup firm after years of freelancing, and Minjin, a dedicated software engineer also in his late 20s, known among friends for his uncanny ability to solve any coding puzzle thrown his way. Their paths crossed through the magic of social circles, friends of friends who knew each other from their university days. It was at an impromptu gathering on the rooftop of a high-rise apartment that Chu-Wei and Minjin locked eyes over shared laughter, mutual interests in K-pop bands, and the latest dramas flooding Korean screens. The connection was palpable, they both felt it. A silent conversation passing between them before they even introduced themselves. It wasn't long after their first meeting when coffee turned into dates. Then those casual outings blossomed into a full-blown romance that seemed to defy the chaos of city life around them. Their days were filled with the gentle humdrum of young love, waking up in each other's arms, sharing breakfast on the tiny balcony where morning dew kissed every leaf, and exchanging stories about their dreams. Chu-Wei would excitedly narrate her latest design projects while Minjin would chime in with tales from his coding adventures. They lived together in a modest apartment nestled between towering complexes in Hongdae, a neighborhood that embraced artists and dreamers alike. The walls of their home were adorned with Chu-Wei's vibrant artwork, showcasing everything from digital illustrations to hand-painted murals inspired by the urban landscape outside. Minjin contributed financially, his salary steadily growing as he climbed the ranks at a tech firm known for its innovative spirit. He was meticulous about budgeting and planning, ensuring they could enjoy their life without unnecessary stress. Dinners out, spontaneous trips to Jeju Island when winter snows turned into spring blossoms, or just saving up for that elusive first home. Chu-Wei's graphic design career soared as her reputation grew among clients who appreciated her unique blend of traditional Korean motifs with modern digital aesthetics. She worked hard but always made time for the things they both cherished, like their weekend trips to Bukhan Hanok village where they'd stroll hand in hand, taking in the serene beauty of Korea's Hanok houses. Together, Chu-Wei and Minjin navigated life's ebbs and flows with a balance that felt almost too perfect. They had found each other amidst Seoul's vibrant chaos, a place where tradition meets modernity at every corner, and within their small world, they were content to let time unfold naturally, knowing that whatever came next would be faced together. As the sun dipped below the horizon on another day in this sprawling city of contrasts, Chu-Wei and Minjin sat side by side on a bench overlooking the glittering lights. They shared a smile, quietly acknowledging that their story was just beginning to write itself, chapter after chapter, amidst the symphony of Seoul's heartbeat. And so they waited for what came next, with anticipation tinged lightly with the thrill of uncertainty, a feeling both comforting and exciting as it whispered promises into the evening breeze. Days turned into weeks, and the novelty of their relationship had settled into a comfortable routine. But amidst the warmth they shared, Chu-Wei couldn't shake off this nagging feeling that was starting to seep into her consciousness like ink in water. Something wasn't quite right with Minjin. At first, it manifested as small things. His eyes would occasionally glaze over for moments too long. He'd move with a precision that seemed almost mechanical. She brushed these thoughts aside, attributing them to the stress of work or perhaps just her own paranoia. But then came those days when clarity turned into suspicion. One evening, while Minjin was engrossed in his coding project, Chu-Wei noticed his fingers dancing across the keyboard with a speed and accuracy that no human could possibly match. It wasn't until she saw him pause, his gaze drifting to something just out of her sigh, that fierce icy grip clutched at her heart. "Minjin," she called softly, trying to sound nonchalant as he turned towards her. "Do you ever feel like there's something missing?" He smiled warmly and leaned in close. "What do you mean?" His voice was a whisper against the quiet hum of their apartment's air conditioning. Chu-Wei hesitated, unsure if she should vocalize what had been gnawing at her insides. But as Minjin's eyes met hers, something shifted, a flicker that could have been just her imagination or perhaps not. "I don't know," Chu-Wei finally said with a shrug, trying to downplay the intensity of her thoughts. "Just sometimes I feel like we're living in black and white when there should be color." Minjin chuckled softly, his demeanor unfazed by her cryptic words. "Life is what you make it, right? We'll paint our own colors." He kissed her forehead gently. Chu-Wei felt a pang of guilt for even entertaining the thought that something was off about him, per Minjin. But as they settled into their evening routine, she couldn't help but notice how his presence seemed to loom larger in the room than it should. casting an unspoken shadow over everything they did together. The days following were a blur of emotions for Ju-wei. She found herself studying every move he made, searching for any sign that would confirm her fears or dismiss them entirely. But with each passing day, her heart sank deeper into uncertainty. Late one night, as Minjin lay asleep beside her, his breaths too measured to be human, Ju-wei knew she couldn't keep this feeling locked away forever. She needed answers, but the question was she ready for what they might uncover? Ju-wei's mind was a whirlwind of questions and fears, but she knew that confronting Minjin directly could have disastrous consequences. So for the time being, she decided to keep her observations hidden behind a mask of normalcy. Every day became an exercise in subtlety. Ju-wei observed Minjin from afar as if he were a stranger living under the same roof. She noted his habits, how he always took exactly 37 steps before sitting down at breakfast, or how his eyes would occasionally flick to the window, where the city lights blurred into one another. Her evenings became a ritual of quiet contemplation and whispered prayers for guidance. Ju-wei knew she had to tread carefully. If her suspicions were true, then Minjin's intentions could be beyond human comprehension. One night, as they lay in bed, Ju-wei couldn't resist the pull of her curiosity any longer. She waited until Minjin was deep asleep before slipping out of their apartment, leaving a note on his pillow that read, "I need some air." The city outside felt alien under the cover of darkness. A world where anything seemed possible and nothing could be trusted. Ju-wei walked for hours, each step taking her further from the truth she needed to confront. She returned home before dawn, heart pounding in her chest as she crept back into their apartment. Minjin was still asleep, his face serene in a way that belied any other emotion. She watched him with an intensity that bordered on obsession, trying to discern what lay beneath the surface of this man who might not be human. Ju-wei's mind raced through scenarios. What if he were indeed an alien? What would he want from her? Would he use his powers for good or evil? She sat in silence until morning light spilled into their room. As Minjin stirred, she forced a smile onto her face and feigned sleep when he tried to wake her. "Are you okay?" he asked with concern etched on his features. Ju-wei nodded slowly, playing the part of someone merely spooked by a bad dream. "Yeah, just tired." Minjin wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close as they lay in wait for what was to come. A future that Ju-wei knew would be shaped not by love and trust but by fear and uncertainty. And so their dance continued, Ju-wei's silent vigilance and Minjin's unknowing presence, each step a countdown to the moment when she'd finally uncover the truth about him. Ju-wei had decided to confront Minjin, her heart pounding with the weight of what she was about to reveal. She sat across from him in their small living room, a space that now felt like an interrogation chamber. "Minjin," Ju-wei began tentatively, "there are things I've discovered about you." A flicker crossed his features, a minuscule change that could have been anything: guilt, surprise, or merely the reflection of light. But it was enough to make her pause and question everything she thought she knew. "What is it?" Minjin asked calmly, placing a hand on hers in an attempt at reassurance. Ju-wei pulled away slightly, unsure if his touch held any otherworldly power. "You're not who you say you are," she stated bluntly. The room seemed to still around them as Minjin's expression shifted into something that was almost regretful. "I am exactly who I claim to be," he said softly, with a hint of sadness in his voice. "But there is more to me than meets the eye." He leaned closer, and for an instant, Ju-wei could have sworn she saw through him, a glimpse into dimensions unknown. "I understand your fear," Minjin continued gently. "I am not here to harm you or anyone else on this planet. My purpose, my curiosity brought me here. I wish only to experience life as a human does." Ju-wei searched his face for any sign of deception, but all she saw was sincerity, a man who had become entwined with her daily routines and now pleaded for understanding. "Experience?" Ju-wei echoed skeptically, the word tasting bitter on her tongue. "Yes," Minjin replied. "To learn from you, to live a day in your life is to walk through an entire universe of emotions." Could she trust him? Could she afford not to? The question lingered as they sat there, two souls suspended between worlds, a human and what might be an alien, bound by the fragile threads of coexistence. Minjin's hand found hers again, warmer than before. "Give me a chance," he implored quietly. "Let us continue our lives together." Ju-wei hesitated, torn between her instincts to protect herself and the need for companionship in this strange new world where she might be alone after all. And so they stayed, two beings navigating an uncharted territory of trust and uncertainty, each step a gamble on what tomorrow would bring. The days melded into each other, a haze of routine and quiet companionship. Ju-wei found herself waking up to the sound of Minjin's soft humming in the kitchen, a humanizing ritual that somehow made her feel less alone. They shared mornings over steaming cups of tea, afternoons with walks through parks where autumn leaves crunched beneath their feet, and evenings by a fireplace where stories were spun into the night. It was an existence stitched together from moments both mundane and magical, each one layered upon another like brushstrokes upon a canvas. But no matter how normal these days seemed, Chu-Wei couldn't shake off her inner turmoil. She'd catch glimpses of Minjin out of the corner of her eye, his silhouette against the setting sun or his shadow in the moonlight, and for an instant he would look not quite human. The edges of reality blurred and she was back to staring into the abyss of uncertainty. She tried to distract herself with hobbies, old friends, and books that piled high on her nightstand, a barricade against the creeping doubt, but it always crept in, like a shadow at dusk, reminding her that beneath their shared laughter and quiet understanding lay an unbridgeable chasm, him an alien, her a human. Minjin sensed her distance but never pressed for answers or closeness she wasn't ready to give. Instead, he showed up with small gestures, a vase of wildflowers on the kitchen table, the hand-drawn picture of their favorite park bench, or the way he'd leave her tea exactly how she liked it every morning. These acts of kindness were like whispered promises that everything would be alright. But they only served to heighten Ju-Wei's internal conflict. She wanted to trust him, to let go of this gnawing fear, but each time she looked into his eyes she saw the alien behind them, the unknown entity who had found a home in her life. As weeks turned into months and their routines deepened, so too did the complexity of emotions within Ju-Wei's heart. She was caught between love for the man he seemed to be and fear of what else he might possess, a duality that left her breathless at night when she lay awake pondering the future they shared. And yet, as much as Minjin tried to fit into this human life with all its peculiarities, there were moments, just fleeting ones, that Ju-Wei couldn't help but wonder if their dance was destined for a different ending than one of simple coexistence. She could feel it, their story teetering on the edge of something more profound or perilous. But for now she chose to live in this limbo, a state where love and fear were equal partners, each whispering its doubts into her ear as they moved through their days together, unsure what tomorrow might bring. Ju-Wei's world was a tapestry woven with threads of doubt and trust, each strand pulling her in conflicting directions. The sun had barely kissed the horizon when she stumbled upon something that would unravel everything, Minjin's secret. It started innocuously enough, a hidden compartment within his nightstand, concealed by an extra layer of fabric on one side. Curiosity pried open the delicate seam, revealing a collection of photographs and documents bound together with a faded ribbon. Her hands trembled as she untied it, each picture telling a story far removed from their quiet life. There were images of Minjin in places that seemed otherworldly, skyscrapers reaching into clouds like giants' fables, landscapes so alien they could have been dreamt up by the maddest of poets. The documents spoke of experiments and observations, a scientist's logbook detailing interactions with beings much like him but clearly not human. There were dates marked in red ink where incidents occurred, incidents that hinted at violence, manipulation, and a chilling ambition to blend into society for purposes unknown. Ju-Wei's breath caught in her throat as she read of an incident involving Minjin by name, a near catastrophe averted only through the intervention of others like him. It was clear he wasn't just another alien wandering Earth. He had been sent here with purpose, and that purpose might not be benign. Her heart raced against her chest, pounding out a rhythm of fear and betrayal. She wanted to leave, to run as far from this truth as she could, but Minjin found her there in the dim light of their living room, paper strewn across her lap like autumn leaves caught by an early frost. "Ju-Wei," he said softly, his voice carrying the weight of worlds, "I knew you would find out eventually. I wanted to tell you myself." He stepped closer, and for a moment she saw not Minjin but something else, a creature with intentions as dark as space itself. But then those eyes met hers, eyes that had watched over her, laughed with her, and the illusion shattered. "I'm no monster," he whispered, his voice breaking like glass on stone. "I came here to protect you. Yes, but also to learn from this world and its people." "But at what cost?" she countered, tears welling up in her eyes as the weight of their situation bore down upon her. He reached out tentatively, a gesture laden with all that had passed between them, a plea for understanding. "At no cost if you stay," he said, his voice barely above a breath now. "I can keep you safe." Ju-Wei wanted to believe him, wanted the comfort of their shared life, but fear clung to her like a shroud. She knew then that she had two choices: trust and risk losing herself in this battle between worlds, or leave and gamble on finding solace elsewhere. As Minjin watched her, his own eyes brimming with unhid tears, Ju-Wei realized the bittersweet truth of their existence, a love tangled up with danger, a hope ensnared by fear. It was an ending neither had wished for, but one that seemed inevitable as nightfall. And so they stood there in silence, two souls suspended between what could have been and what might yet be, each second stretching into eternity until the moment when Ju-wei's decision would tip their fates onto a path from which there would be no return. The air was heavy with foreboding, as Juwo and Minjin faced each other in the quiet of their home, once a sanctuary now transformed into an arena for an inevitable confrontation. Words hung suspended between them, unspoken yet understood to the core. Ju-wei's hands shook as she clutched the documents tightly, evidence of what Minjin truly was. Her mind raced with scenarios, each more terrifying than the last. She knew resisting him might be her only chance at survival, but also realized it could lead to a confrontation neither would survive in its purest form. Minjin stepped closer, his movements eerily calm as if he had anticipated this moment all along. Ju-wei, he began, and she steeled herself for what was coming next. But before he could finish, Ju-wei acted on instinct, a desperate move born from fear rather than skill. She lunged forward, gripping a pen in her hand like a dagger. The sharp tip pierced Minjin's chest with a sickening thud as his eyes widened in shock. For an instant, time seemed to freeze, and then he crumpled to the ground, life ebbing away from him just as swiftly as he had taken hers all those years ago. It was over almost before it began, a violent end to what could have been a beautiful lie. Ju-wei stared at Minjin's fallen form with tears streaming down her face, but no room left for remorse or regret. She knew that in saving herself, she'd lost something far greater than just an otherworldly companion. She had ended the life of someone who had shown her kindness and love. As his last breath escaped him, a blinding light enveloped Minjin's body. The air shimmered around him before he vanished into thin air, leaving behind only the faint scent of ozone and an eerie silence that seemed to reverberate with the weight of their fates forever entwined. Ju-wei stood there frozen in shock, as reality settled upon her like a shroud. She had survived, but at what cost? The questions swirled through her mind, each one more haunting than the last, as she gazed into the empty space where Minjin once was, a reminder that some battles are fought and lost not just on this earth, but across dimensions and time itself. Ju-wei wandered through their now empty apartment, each step echoing off the bare walls. The space felt cold, devoid of warmth, the very essence Minjin had brought to life with his presence. She couldn't help but recall those early days when they'd first met, a connection so strong it seemed almost supernatural. How easily she'd fallen for him, swept away by his charming smile and kind eyes that promised a future filled with love and laughter. But now the truth hung heavy in the air like a shroud of deceit. Minjin's true nature, his sinister purpose, had shattered Ju-wei's world into a million jagged pieces. As she sat amidst the remnants of their life together, Ju-wei felt tears prick at her eyes, not for what they'd lost, but for the cruel trickery that had been played upon her heart. The ache within was bittersweet, a longing for something that never truly existed in the first place. With a heavy sigh, Ju-wei rose to her feet and began packing away Minjin's belongings, the few earthly possessions he'd accumulated during his time on Earth. Each item served as a painful reminder of their brief, ill-fated romance. As she sealed the last box with a resolute click, Ju-wei made a silent vow. No matter how deeply she might have been ensnared by Minjin's lies and manipulation, she would not let her heart be defined by his deception. She would heal, move forward, and perhaps one day find love again on her own terms. With that thought in mind, Ju-wei stepped out into the bright sunlight, ready to embrace a future free from the shadows of an alien who had promised her the world and delivered only pain. And so Ju-wei's story comes to a close. I want you to remember the harsh lesson she learned. Never trust the supernatural, no matter how attached they may seem. Even when an alien can convincingly mimic human emotions and behaviors, their true nature remains hidden beneath the surface. Ju-wei thought she had found love in Minjin, but it was deception designed to manipulate her for unknown purposes. His kind may be capable of imitating affection, kindness, even pain, but it is us humans know the meaning of true suffering, so beware, dear listener, and never let your guard down around those who seem too good or otherworldly to be true. Trust only in what has been proven to be true, for in a world where deception can take many forms, it's up to us to be vigilant, and never give an inch to evil parading as good.
This is archival entry 941A, Seoul Sector. Subject designation, Minjin. Last signal detected at 3:17 hours. Apartment block, Morpo District. Energy signature was verified as identical to the Siberian entity Victor, catalogued in Incident 7K. Shortly after, trace was lost. No physical remnants recovered. No further contact. All records now sealed under Level 3 Black Hat.
Whatever it was, it learned how to disappear.